My stepmother threw me out, yelling, "Thief, you stole my diamond bracelet," while my father just looked away. 2 weeks later, I walked into the boardroom. As the main shareholder, I have some changes to propose. My stepmom fainted on the spot. I still remember the exact moment when everything changed. Not when Diane threw me out, or even that crazy day I walked into the boardroom. Nah, it started way before. When Dad brought home his new friend, just 8 months after Mom died. I was 17, trying to survive senior year while Dad was busy moving on. That's what he called it anyway. So yeah, I'm Emily. Until 3 years ago, my life seemed pretty mapped out. College, maybe law school, like Mom did, then joining Dad's company, Richardson Tech, somewhere down the line. We weren't rolling in money or anything, but Dad built something decent from nothing. Mom was so proud of him for it. Then cancer took her in 6 months flat, and everything just fell apart. Diane crashed into our lives like some hurricane wearing designer shoes. 15 years younger than Dad, perfect hair that never moved, and this way of looking at our family photos like she was mentally erasing Mom from them. The wedding happened so fast, I got whiplash. Suddenly she was everywhere, sitting in Mom's chair, sleeping in Mom's bed, rearranging Mom's kitchen like it had been set up wrong all these years. I tried, honestly. For Dad's sake, I really did. But Diane made it crystal clear she wasn't interested in the stepmom gig. She wanted Dad, his company, and the lifestyle. Period. I started hanging around Uncle Jack more, Mom's brother who also worked at Richardson Tech. He and Dad had what you might call creative differences about running things. Jack became my rock when Dad disappeared into his new life. He'd take me to lunch, bug me about college applications, tell me stories about Mom when they were kids. Sometimes he'd sneak me into company meetings saying, "You gotta learn this stuff from the ground up, Em." He'd always add, "Your dad built this company with your mom's support. Never forget this is your legacy too." Had no clue then how soon those words would matter. "You stole my diamond bracelet, you ungrateful little thief." Those words still bounce around my head sometimes. It was just a regular Tuesday. I'd dragged myself home from my tech startup internship, exhausted with a mountain of assignments waiting. Still, I thought maybe I should try having dinner with Dad and Diane for once. Stupid me, thinking effort might help. I hadn't even made it to the kitchen when Diane came storming down the hall, face all twisted up, waving her arms like a windmill. That expensive tennis bracelet Dad gave her for their anniversary? Nowhere to be seen on her wrist. "Where is it? I know you took it," she screamed right in my face. I was so blindsided I couldn't even speak at first. "What are you talking about?" I finally managed, but she was already yelling for Dad. He appeared from his office looking irritated, not at her wild accusation, but at being interrupted. That's when my stomach dropped. "Richard, I've had enough." Her voice had that fake wobble she used whenever she wanted something. "I've caught her going through my jewelry before, and now my diamond bracelet is gone. The one you gave me." Dad just stood there, looking at the wall, the floor, the ceiling, anywhere but at me. "Dad," my voice came out all small and pathetic. "I didn't take anything. I wouldn't do that." I waited for him to defend me, to at least question why she'd accuse me without any proof. Instead, he sighed like I was some problem he was tired of dealing with. "Emily, if you took it, just give it back and we can forget this happened," he said, flat as day-old soda. Not mad, not disappointed, just inconvenienced. "But I didn't take it. I haven't even been in your room." I was shouting now, my eyes burning. That's when Diane started throwing my stuff into a suitcase, clothes, books, my laptop, grabbing whatever she could reach and tossing it down the stairs. "I want her out, Richard, now. I won't have a thief living under my roof." The way she said "my roof" made my blood freeze. Dad just watched, face blank, as she continued her meltdown. "Either she goes or I go, Richard." And he chose. Not with words, with silence. He just stood there, looking through me like I was made of glass. While Diane shoved the half-packed suitcase at me, and practically pushed me out the front door. Last thing I saw before it slammed was Dad's face, not meeting my eyes, not fighting for me, just looking away. I spent that night on my friend Sarah's couch, feeling nothing and everything at once. 20 years old, kicked out of my own home, called a thief and abandoned by my own father. I called Uncle Jack next morning, barely holding it together as I explained. "Come stay with me, kiddo," he said right away. "We'll figure this out." No idea then that Jack was already working on a plan that would change everything. Jack's apartment became my refuge. Nothing fancy, just an old 2 bedrooms up downtown, but it felt more like home than home had in years. "Your mom and I grew up in a place half this size," he told me that first night, making up the spare bed with these ancient but clean sheets. Never needed much more. What Jack lacked in fancy stuff, he made up for in knowing things. He'd been with Richardson Tech since day one, handling operations while Dad did the innovation and sales part. He knew every corner of the business. That first week, I mostly just cried and slept, but Jack had other ideas. "You're gonna learn the business," he announced one morning over cereal, sliding a stack of financial reports across to me. All of it. I stared at him like he'd suggested I learn to breathe underwater. Why? Dad clearly doesn't want me involved. Jack just gave me that sad smile that made his eyes crinkle up. "Because it's in your blood, Em. And because there are things you need to understand." I had no clue then that Jack had been fighting stage 4 pancreatic cancer for months, diagnosed right around when I started my internship. He'd kept it from everyone, even Dad. "No point in the pity parade," he said when he finally told me, about 2 weeks after I moved in. We were going through quarterly numbers when he casually mentioned his upcoming chemo. I nearly fell off my chair. "Why didn't you tell me? Does Dad know?" Jack shook his head. "Your dad and I haven't really talked since your mom died. He's too wrapped up in his new life." Weirdly, he didn't sound bitter, just matter of fact. Besides, got other priorities now. Those priorities included teaching me everything about Richardson Tech. The money stuff, operations, key people, the whole history. "Your mom helped build this company too," he'd remind me. "She didn't have the fancy title, but her fingerprints are all over this place." What Jack held back, what I didn't learn until later, was that he'd been quietly buying company shares for years. As one of the first employees, he had stock options he never cashed out. He'd also bought more whenever he could. Nobody, not even Dad, knew how much of the company Jack actually owned. "I'm making you my heir," he told me one night, his voice weaker than the day before. "Not just my apartment or savings, my shares in Richardson Tech." I'd tried arguing, saying he'd beat this thing and wouldn't need an heir, but we both knew better. Jack died 3 weeks later, holding my hand and making me promise, "Don't let them erase what your mom helped build." The will reading was quick and straightforward. Jack left everything to me, including his 37% stake in Richardson Tech, combined with the 15% Mom had left in trust for me when I turned 21, which happened days after Jack's funeral. I now owned 52% of Dad's company. I was the majority shareholder. Holy crap. The day after finding out about my inheritance, I met with Marcus, our family lawyer who'd handled Mom's and Jack's estates. He was old school, reading glasses always sliding down his nose, more interested in truth than taking sides. Always liked that about him. Jack planned this carefully, Marcus explained, laying out papers across his desk. He knew exactly what he was doing. He showed me certificates, legal documents, trust, paperwork, all bulletproof. Your father can't fight this, Emily. The company is effectively yours to control. I sat there stunned, staring at papers that basically gave me more power than I'd ever imagined having. What do I do now? My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. Marcus peered at me over those glasses. That depends. What do you want? That question haunted me for days. What did I want? Revenge? To make up with Dad, run the company, sell it? I called Sarah, my best friend since forever. You need to make an entrance, she declared after I spilled everything. Something they'll never forget. Sarah always had a flair for drama, but this time I agreed. We spent hours planning what I'd wear, what I'd say, how I'd handle the inevitable fallout. About what if I mess up, I asked her, anxiety creeping in. I'm not a businesswoman. Sarah grabbed my shoulders. You've been studying this company for weeks with Jack. You know more than you think. Besides, you don't need all the answers yet. You just need to show them who's boss now. The night before the board meeting, I couldn't sleep at all. Kept picturing Dad's face when he realized what happened. Would he be angry? Proud? Would he fight me? I practiced my speech like 50 times, pacing Jack's living room until sunrise. By morning, something shifted in me. The hurt was still there, but it had hardened into something stronger. Determination. I wasn't just Jack's heir or Richard's daughter anymore. I was Emily Richardson, majority shareholder of Richardson Technologies. Time everyone knew it. Got dressed, carefully. Nothing flashy, just a black blazer, white blouse, dark jeans, and Mom's pearl earrings. Professional but not trying too hard. You look like you mean business, Sarah said before I left. Jack would be proud. Driving to headquarters, I rehearsed one last time. The board wouldn't be expecting me, according to Marcus. They didn't even know about Jack's shares transferring to me yet. Dad and Diane would be there, along with the other members, including Robert, the CFO, who always treated me like I was 5. Pulling into the parking lot, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Remember who you are. Go get 'em. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed my folder of documents and headed for the elevators. The receptionist recognized me and smiled, no idea her world was about to tilt. Good morning, Miss Richardson. Here to see your father? I smiled back, surprised by how steady I felt. No, I'm here for the board meeting. The Richardson Tech boardroom always intimidated me growing up. Everything about it screamed money and power. That massive mahogany table, windows looking out over the whole city, leather chairs probably worth more than my car. But that morning, it felt different. Not their territory anymore. I could hear them talking inside. Dad's deep voice, Diane's fake laugh, Robert droning about projections. Marcus waited by the door, papers ready, exactly as planned. He nodded at me, looking both worried and impressed. Ready? He asked quietly. I thought about Mom, about Uncle Jack, about Dad letting me get thrown out like garbage. Ready. Marcus went in first. Excuse the interruption, he announced, all formal. There's an important shareholder matter requiring immediate attention. The talking stopped dead. I counted to 3, like Sarah and I practiced, then stepped into the doorway. 8 faces turned to me, expressions ranging from confused to annoyed. Dad sat at the head of the table, Diane next to him in some cream-colored suit that probably cost more than most people's rent. Her face went from shocked to furious in about half a second. Emily? Dad looked genuinely confused. What are you doing here? This is a closed board meeting. I walked all the way in, heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. But my voice came out steady. I know exactly what this is, Dad. I'm here because I have every right to be. I nodded to Marcus, who started handing out copies of the documents. As of Jack Richardson's passing 3 weeks ago, I inherited his 37% stake in Richardson Technologies. Combined with the 15% left to me by my mother, I now hold 52% of this company's shares. The room went dead silent. Robert recovered first, frantically flipping through the papers. Dad just stared at me, face draining of color. But I was watching Diane as I delivered my final line. As the majority shareholder of Richardson Technologies, I have some changes to propose to this board, effective immediately. Diane's reaction was straight out of a bad soap opera. Her eyes went huge, mouth hanging open, and then, like something from a movie, she actually fainted, slumping sideways. Robert caught her before she hit the floor, but nobody else moved. They were all staring at me, or at the documents. Dad stood up slowly, knuckles white where he gripped the table. Emily, he said, barely above a whisper, what have you done? I met his eyes directly. Nothing compared to what you did, Dad. Nothing compared to what you didn't do. Robert was fanning Diane with a folder, while the other board members whispered urgently. I stayed standing, perfectly still, the weight of what I'd just done settling around me. I dreamed of this moment, rehearsed it, imagined it, but nothing prepared me for how it actually felt. Not triumphant, not vengeful, just necessary. The next few hours passed in a blur. Diane came around pretty quick, though she refused to look at me directly. The board members bombarded Marcus with questions about the legality of everything, which he answered like someone who'd prepared for every possible challenge. Dad said almost nothing. He just sat there looking suddenly old, occasionally glancing at me like he was seeing a ghost. Eventually, I called the meeting to order, my first official act as majority shareholder. I have no intention of disrupting daily operations, I announced, surprising myself with how professional I sounded. Richardson Tech has always been about innovation and integrity. That won't change. I laid out my immediate plans. Full financial audit, review of recent executive decisions, and setting up a charitable foundation in Mom's name using some company profits. And one more thing, I added, looking straight at Diane. I'll be moving back into my family home tonight. The meeting ended with enough tension to snap a steel cable. The board members filed out, some nodding respectfully to me, others clearly confused about where their loyalties should be. Robert stayed behind briefly, approaching with what seemed like genuine respect. Your uncle taught you well, he said quietly. For what it's worth, I think he'd be proud. Then he was gone too, leaving just Dad, Diane, and me in that massive room. Diane found her voice first. You can't just waltz in here and... I can, I cut her off, surprising all of us. And I have. You might want to start packing, Diane. I hear the guest house is lovely this time of year. She stormed out, heels clicking like angry insects against the marble. Dad and I were left alone. Really alone. For the first time since that awful night. The bracelet was in her jewelry box, he said finally, voice rough. She found it the day after you left. It had fallen behind her dresser. Something cracked inside me. And you didn't call me? You didn't think I deserved to know that, or an apology, or anything? Dad rubbed his face like he was trying to erase it. She wouldn't let me. Said it would only encourage your behavior. I've been weak, Emily. Weak since your mother died. That's not an excuse, I said, tears threatening for the first time that day. You chose her over me, your own daughter. He nodded, accepting this truth. I did, and I'll regret it forever. We talked for hours that day, really talked, in ways we hadn't since Mom died. About grief, about Diane, about Uncle Jack, about the company. Dad admitted he'd been so lost in his own pain that he'd let Diane take control of everything. His life, his decisions, even his relationship with me. Jack tried to warn me, he confessed. I wouldn't listen. So, what happens now? Dad asked as it got dark, the boardroom dimming around us. I thought about Uncle Jack's last words. Don't let them erase what your mom helped build. Now we rebuild, I said simply. The company, and maybe us too. I moved back home that night, though Dad and I agreed Diane should stay until she found her own place. It was awkward as hell, but necessary. Like pulling out a splinter so the wound can heal. The company audit showed Diane had been shifting company money to accounts only she controlled. She left 3 weeks later. Divorce papers signed in record time. Richardson Technologies did better than ever under our joint leadership. Dad's innovation with my fresh perspective and everything Jack taught me. We started the Katherine Richardson Foundation for Women in Tech, using Mom's maiden name as a reminder of who she was. Sometimes I think about that boardroom moment, Diane fainting, Dad speechless, my voice steadier than I ever thought possible. It wasn't about revenge in the end. It was about taking back what was mine, my home, my legacy, my family's company. Uncle Jack gave me the tools, but the strength to use them? that came from somewhere deeper, from Mom, maybe, or just from finally knowing my own worth. Dad and I aren't perfect. We still have our fights, our rough patches, our moments when the past creeps back in. But we're trying. And somewhere, I like to think Uncle Jack is watching, maybe sitting with Mom, both of them nodding approval. Not at the drama or the power play, but at the healing that came after. Because that, I've learned, is the hardest part of any story. What happens after you change everything?